6 minutes, and then we'll have our first commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with the book, with your book, one of your many books, and then after that 8-minute segment, we'll come back and we'll deal with some of the displays and some of the artifacts that you have dated back to the institution of slavery, and then we'll have an opportunity to deal with those artifacts and that display for the last 10 minutes of the show, and then we'll be able to end this show for today. Let's start off by having you to talk about TMorton Young before she became Dr. TMorton Young. Let's do it from that perspective, Dr. Young.
Well, I am TMorton Young. I was born and reared in Nashville, in North Nashville, in fact. I am a product of the public schools. I received my Bachelor's of Arts degree cum laude from Tennessee State University. I was picked by the Southern Education Foundation and some of my former professors at Tennessee State to integrate Peabody College long before it became a part of Vanderbilt. I was the first African American to graduate from Peabody College with a Master's of Arts. I later went on to Duke University because I was in North Carolina at the University of North Carolina system teaching and as an administrator, and received a PhD from Duke University. I am listed on the North Carolina literary map, although I am a Tennessean, but my roots go back to North Carolina. Not only do my roots go back to North Carolina, but I have traced them across the ocean to the Ewe tribe of southern Ghana. I am a genealogist, and the last time I had the pleasure of being on your program, we talked about the Tennessee African American Genealogical and Historical Society. And so my writings, the majority of them are in history and genealogy. And the work that I'd like to share with you today is genealogical. It is Southern history. It is African history. And it's about the experience of a woman from whose parents came from Africa. She was born here. But as I say, I am a genealogist. I do research and have, I guess, since the 1970s, and decided to write this particular book about my great-grandmother, in fact.
And so what we'll do, Dr. Young, is to devote some time to this particular book during our second segment of this show. But now, this is not the only book that you've written. I'm sure of that because I know of some of the earlier books. But why don't you, during the last minute and a half, mention some of the other books that you've written so that we might be able to get that information onto tape for today?
Yes. One of the books that I have written, which has also been published in India. That's interesting to me. But it's called Nashville, Tennessee. It's in the Black America series, over 200 photographs and legends and descriptions. I wrote another book about Nashville called Sable Scenes, true life stories of life and living in a southern town, Nashville. I have written books with interest for women, including Fabulous You, Claiming and Celebrating the Fabulous Self, Mind, Body, and Spirit. I also have a book that I wrote growing out of my psychology background, and it's called After School Programs for At-Risk Youth and Their Families. And of course several others which I won't.
Okay, and so what we'll do, Dr. Young, we'll take this first commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll have an opportunity to talk about one of the books that you've written, and we'll have about 8 minutes to deal with that. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. This segment, this segment that's coming up is with the book.
So, do you want the books to pick up and show? Because
Yes, I can pick the book up and hold it.
hey, I want to bring this little here.
Yeah. And so what he's going to do is make a display so that we can put your book on display. You don't have to hold it. You can talk about it there.
Good.
Yeah, that's good, Phil.
Yeah, and I have a little stand that I can put the book on. I came prepared.
Well, what?
Let's see, I believe, yeah, that's it. Oh, he has a stand. Good. Excellent.
Is this the only one you need?
That's the only one we got.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and so what they'll do, they'll get a shot of that, and then while we're talking, they'll be able to project it on the screen, so we don't have to worry about that. You don't have to hold it or anything, and it'll be shown.
There's a photograph of, yes, that if you could show,
This?
yeah. Yeah, that's her story.
Okay, very good. Okay, that's good. Now we've got the displays and everything that's necessary for our discussion of the book.
I don't have that 200-year-old pipe stem, and this is part of American history too.
I know, but I think that we're going to do that on the last. We're going to we're going to put everything on the last segment. We wanted to put this book up, since this is what you want to talk about now. The roads,
many roads
travel. You see, and so. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. TMorton Young, and she's giving us some information relative to her ancestors and some of the things that were important in terms of the African experience in the United States. And I think, Dr. Young, you would like to say something about the book that you have recently published called Many Roads Travel. I think that we have a display in reference to that. Why don't you talk about that book and some of the things that you feel that are associated with that?
Yes. Many Roads Travel, or 20 Years in Bondage, was inspired, the writing was inspired by the woman in that old tin-type photograph, and by the pipe stem that she had, which somehow remained in the family for over 200 years. That pipe stem is older than America. It belonged to this woman's grandfather. In the 1970s, when I became very much submerged into genealogy, I did research in North Carolina, where this woman, we first find her. And that journey took me to the shores of Africa. The book is historical fiction, which means it is a creative reconstruction of events, people, and places. And so in the creative reconstruction, we visit the shore of Africa where two children are playing on the coast, and they see this, what they think is a mirage in the distance, this big, gray, white-looking thing. But it is not. It is a slave ship. And they are free and happy and carefree and romping in the sand. And they end up on that ship being